And then the final piece that we're going to look at is using a data set. We get this window which shows us the data, shows us the fields used in it, shows us the source information. You may notice top right we have this thing called quick charts, and it's currently set to table. So baseline only works if you've got bar or area selected. What I can do is grab measure names and drag this onto color. When that's finished, the table will appear in the data workspace in ThoughtSpot. Hi, it's Steve from 70 Experts, back with the final installment in our Analyst Studio series. So we've already looked at what Analyst Studio is and how to access it, as well as some of the key components. So we've looked at Write SQL up here, which is where you get started querying your data. We've also looked at making a new data set, which is kind of part 2. So once you've done some analysis, you can then create a data set to reuse elsewhere. And then the final piece that we're going to look at is using a data set. So we're going to pick one of the data sets, how to do that, and then what you can do with it. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing to do is where do you find the data sets? So as you can see, I'm in the My Work section at the moment of Analyst Studio. At the top, you have the main icons that you're able to click. Additionally, using the plus symbol in the top right, you've got the ability to click exactly those same things. And that's generally the quickest way of doing anything in Analyst Studio because that plus icon's always there. But finally, based on the section you're in on the left, you can select a data set from there. But of course, this is not just data sets in these lists, this is reports as well as data sets. But what you can see, top middle, you're able to narrow that down to just reports or data sets. So if I do that, there's our list of data sets. I can click on one, so let's do this one. You get a pop-out window, what do you want to do? Edit this or view it. So let's view the data set. We get this window which shows us the data, shows us the fields used in it, and shows us the source information. So in this instance, it was just a basic SQL statement, and then we can use in a new report. Similarly, if I just go back a page, if we were to select one of the other ways of accessing a data set, so use a data set up here, that's going to give us this pop-out window. We've got 2 tabs. Data sets that exist in the workspace, so there's only one shared at the moment in this workspace, or my personal. Again, just select the one that you want. I'm going to do select star from Dunder Mifflin just because it's a very basic data set. You can preview it, which is useful. So you can click that and see, again, the same window we've just seen. It's useful if you don't know exactly which data set you want to use. I'm just going to hit back, come back to this screen, and I'm just going to select that, click use data set. So this takes us through into this tabular format. This is the data in a table. Columns down the right-hand side that you can drag on and off canvas. And again, similar on the right-hand side, the far right columns, including a symbol just to indicate their data type, so dates, text, measures, etc., and the ability to format some of these as well. So this is where you could effectively build out a report of sorts. There is no onward use for this, so it's just purely in your data prep, data modeling. You're trying to get an understanding of the data, but there are a few more options here. You may notice top right, we have this thing called quick charts, and it's currently set to table. So if we click on that, you get this window. It splits it out into 2 sections, Visual Explorer and Quick Charts. So Quick Charts is where you know what sort of chart you're looking to build. You select it from the list, and when you hover over these, it gives you a tooltip saying what the chart type is. So you can select that, and if you select a pivot table, it will tell you how to build the pivot table. Whereas Visual Explorer, you're able to move things around on the canvas as you see fit, and the page will update. So if you start with a pivot table, but then you start moving some of the dimensions around, it may change to a bar chart or a line chart and so on. And that really gives you the flexibility to do some quite impressive visuals. So let's start with one of the quick charts. It's worth calling out that another way you can do it is instead of changing this table over to a chart, we can click the tab up here. You get the same drop-down list of options, but it's going to be in addition to this table, so it won't overwrite it. So let's just go for a basic line and bar chart. To create this, you see it says you need 1 field in the x-axis, 2 fields in the y-axis. So let's do 1 in there, and we'll do 2 measures. So let's do quantity and price. As soon as I do that, it will create the chart. And there we go. Let's do a new chart type, and we're going to go Visual Explorer. You can see these are just laid out as different tabs along the top, so that's quite useful to be able to refer back. So now we're in the Visual Explorer. Here you can see it looks very similar. Dimensions and measures down the right. You have your column shelf, your rows shelf, but you've now got this layers shelf as well as filters. So if we move things around, account manager, quantity onto rows, just going to build a basic bar chart. But that's because on this layer shelf, for the layer, we have it set to auto, which is bar. I can change that to a line, and this will be familiar. If you've used different types of BI tools in the past, this kind of interface will be familiar to you. So we can switch that over to various different things. But now we have the ability to drag other elements, so dimensions and measures, into these different shelves. So we have color, we've got text, details, and then there's this thing called baseline. Baseline I will walk through in detail because it's a really useful addition. So lots of flexibility here. So there's nothing to stop me now bringing on many different measures. And you'll see this splits them out into two separate axes at the moment. You can make that a shared axis or a dual axis. I won't go into the details on those, but you can see that that capability exists. Again, I can just keep dragging items on, and we get a separate axis for each. But then what we can do is go into the layer shelf and say quantity is fine as an area chart, discount, let's make that a bar chart, price, we're going to change that to circles, and let's move rating, let's make that, there we go. Of course that doesn't work very well for this visual, but I'm just illustrating the flexibility that you do get in Visual Explorer. At present in Analyst Studio, this is as far as you can go with the visuals in terms of saving them, presenting them. This isn't designed for end users to be able to analyze the data. This is for your analysts to be modeling, preparing it, getting it in a data readiness state. If I start a new one, let's look at this baseline feature. So baseline only works if you've got bar or area selected, and baseline determines the start and end of a data point. So we've selected a bar chart here. Let's put account manager onto columns. So let's put purchased at on columns. If we bring in a reviewed at, drop that onto baseline, we can see now that actually these are a bit like a Gantt chart. So it's split out. A particular account manager had its reviewed at date and its purchased at. It's very useful if you've got two dates to be able to build out a picture of a bit like a time series analysis. So that's just a brief example of how the baseline section works. Okay, so we've got a new tab. Let's just look at using these measure values and measure names tokens. So firstly, let's bring on just a dimension. So let's find account manager. Then let's bring in measure values onto rows. And what you'll see is this brings up this measure values shelf. We're able to drop in many values onto this shelf. And we'll show you how the chart looks. So if we do days to close and days to ship. So at the moment, nothing looks like it's happening. But if you hover over, you can see this is showing days to close. And if I scroll down, you can see that this is split out. But we've got no differentiation in the color here. What I can do is grab measure names and drag this onto color. And you see that's split by the different colors. So again, there's just lots of flexibility here to be able to use these different tokens, measure names, measure values, in order to lay the data out in a format that you see fit. So the final thing to look at here is once you've published a data set, how do you actually access that within ThoughtSpot? So as you can see here, I've just published this data set. You can see in the top right here, we have a pop-out notification just to say that publication is initiated. So when that's finished, the table will appear in the data workspace in ThoughtSpot. So we'll go into ThoughtSpot and find it. Okay, so you need to go to your data workspace in data objects here. You can see at the top here, select all from Dunder Mifflin. So that was the table name that I gave it. And you can see if you look in the source column, we get this identified to say this has come from Analyst Studio and it's a data set. So that's a brief run through of using data sets in Analyst Studio. We focused very much on the charting capabilities here. At present, these are not available in ThoughtSpot. So this is all about data readiness, preparing your data in anticipation of publishing a data set into ThoughtSpot for the self-serve, for users to build their own live boards, to analyze using Spotter, etc. But all of Analyst Studio's capabilities is focused around getting that data ready. So I hope you found this video useful. Of course, let us know in the comments if you've got anything else that you'd like us to do videos on. We'll try and make that happen. Give it a like. Check out 7D Experts LinkedIn page, where we're keeping up to date on ThoughtSpot technologies, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks.